This is Career Coaching X's and O's, and I'm your host, Mark Anthony Peterson, the founder and thought leader at Sierra Consulting, a small business strategy and technology consulting firm. A small part of our practice is executive coaching. These episodes are the summations of some of those sessions. The title of today's show is The 5 Ways to Avoid Mentor Whiplash. The 5 Ways to Avoid Mentor Whiplash. In past episodes, I have suggested that you think of yourself and your career as if you were a small business. And being a small business, I advise that you should have a board of directors or a board of advisors. Why did I make that recommendation? Because the Small Business Association published a stat that says that small businesses that have a board of advisors or a board of directors are 75% more likely to stay in business past 5 years. So if it can work for a small business, it absolutely can work for you in your career. Because you are a small business. You're bringing in income, you're networking, you're trying to grow your net wealth beyond your cost of living. So you have to think of yourself as a business. However, there is one drawback from having a board of advisors: mentor whiplash. According to upramp.com, mentor whiplash is the fatigue that many mentees feel after working with several smart mentors, all of them offering different opinions and feedback. And you can get that if you have multiple mentors helping you guide your career. So in today's show, I'm going to give you 5 ways to avoid that mentor whiplash. What's the first way? The first way is for you to have a clearly defined career strategy. Know where you want to go based on the capabilities and competencies that you bring to bear. So it means it has to be realistic. It's not a wish list. It's not a thought puzzle. It's a clear strategy based on what you have and what you need that would lead you to a certain outcome in your career. You need that mapped out because that'll help you better filter any guidance or feedback provided by a mentor. What's the second thing you should do? You should communicate all your career barriers and your skill weaknesses to all of your mentors. Now, I know this can be difficult to sit across the table and tell a mentor that you lack certain capabilities that are needed to move to the next level. But if you're not being true to yourself and doing that sort of SWOT analysis, your mentor can't help you or bring resources to bear that are going to be contextual for your situation and for your career path. So you want to be clear on all of that and communicate the same information to each of those mentors. Now, what's the third thing? The third way to avoid mentor whiplash is to convince all of your mentors to meet and communicate with each other regularly. So that means you should plan at least a quarterly meeting with all of your mentors in the room or on the phone at the same time, so that you can consolidate the feedback and they can work off of each other to make sure they're getting the right information from you to help your career. I was recently participating in a startup accelerator. We had 3 very smart mentors. Each of the mentors sat down and gave us their advice on the name of the startup. One mentor said, "The name absolutely has to go. It doesn't speak to what you do as a business." The second mentor said, don't worry about it. The name works. You have traction already in the marketplace. There's no reason to change now until you hit a certain financial milestone. The third mentor suggested that we let the customer dictate what the new name of the company could be. As you can see, each mentor had a different perspective. When we got them all in a room, we found out that they didn't disagree, but instead they gave us a roadmap on how to execute each of their suggestions with the appropriate timelines laid down next to those recommendations. So getting them in the same room helps you organize the thinking and lay it up against any of the barriers that may be preventing you from moving to that next level. What's the fourth thing I want you to do? Context, context, context. Always communicate that. For those of you who are parents, your kids are great at telling the story but leaving out the context, so that you can't make an appropriate judgment on whether or not what they're saying is all of the truth or only the truth from their perspective. And you have to get into the habit of painting the best picture for your mentors with as much context as possible so that they're giving you valid information. You remember the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't provide enough context, you're going to get the type of advice you deserve. Finally, what's the fifth thing you can do to avoid mentor whiplash? Get advice from people who have achieved what you hope to accomplish. I have several mentors. When I'm looking to execute a particular plan or seeking out a certain opportunity, I will seek out those mentors who have already achieved that particular goal or completed that particular project. And I'll work and spend most of my time with that mentor. Why? Because they have on-the-job experience. They have a certificate from the School of Hard Knocks. And so I'm going to prioritize that advice above all others. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, you may also like some of my other podcasts. Gorillapreneur, The Art of Waging Small Business Warfare. In this podcast, I interview entrepreneurs and business mavericks, and they give you the ups and downs of launching a startup. Gigging, Everything in the Sharing Economy. In this podcast, I talk about the gig economy and give you interviews with the CEOs of the next wave of gig companies. So check out those two podcasts and hit subscribe on Career Coaching X's and O's. I know you're going to share it with your colleagues because the best people listen to this podcast. Tell us the issues you're struggling with in your career, and we will research them, and we might even do a podcast episode about them. If you need more support for your career, please find us on the web at Ceyero.com. Ceyero.com. And let us help you develop a plan for your career. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Ceyero Consulting. Before I let you out of this episode, I want to let you know that I'm teaming up with Airbnb Open Homes, a program that enables community members to offer free temporary housing for people displaced by disasters. Guys, I don't have to tell you about all the disasters that we faced this year. Fires, hurricanes, tropical storms. One of our greatest needs is making sure that every resident has a safe place to stay when one of these disasters hit. If you are able to offer free, temporary housing for neighbors impacted by disaster, Sign up to be an open homes host by going to airbnb.com/mpeterson. That's airbnb.com/mpeterson. You will only be contacted when there is a need. This will add a great tool to our community's disaster response toolbox. This has been Career Coaching X's and O's, and I am your host, Mark Anthony Peterson, founder and thought leader at Sierra Consulting.